Welcome everybody after the break. Sorry for a slight delay, but we had some technical issues. We have a seventh session of our conference ahead of us, and I would like to welcome Béla from Hungary, who will chair this session for us. So Béla, the microphone is yours now.
Thank you, Agnieszka. Is Grzegorz around? I can't see him on the screen.
Yeah, I'm here.
You are here, okay. Hello to everyone from Budapest, greetings. I'm pleased to announce 3 papers for our afternoon session, which are all addressing renewability, but from 3 totally different angles, I believe. All speakers are from Poland, and I just, at this stage, would like to comment about my view and say experimental Polish academia I find. This is, of course, a V4 project, and it's unavoidable to draw comparisons between countries who take part in it. And in the 1970s, we knew in Hungary that Poland was in the forefront of new music during communist times with its flagship Warsaw Autumn Festival. Many Hungarians attended. And of course, after the change, everything went through a major transformation, and contemporary classical music composition and music-related research doesn't mean the same that it used to 50 years ago. A number of papers presented at this conference, and the topic coming from Polish universities point to a very up-to-date attitude of research, which reflect on the most debated issues of recent times. Well, the first presentation Grzegorz is going to do addresses the role of artificial intelligence in music. And I think we all know how AI is debated and how much it divides science. Some claim that it represents a huge danger for humankind, and some claim that it will revolutionize the way we live on this planet. So I find it very controversial. And this is why, I'm very much looking forward to the first paper and see what Grzegorz' view will be on it. A few words about him. He's an engineer in computer science and specializing in the relation between music and modern technologies. At the moment, he's a master's student. And in 2023, he presented major papers at conferences, not only in Poland, but also in Manchester. And he's doing, which I find quite interesting, research on MRI, medical research, I guess, on sound perception. So Grzegorz, the microphone is now yours.
Thank you very much. I would like to ask if you can see my video correctly in presentation, and can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, we can hear you.
Thank you very much for this kind introduction, Simon. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm honored to be here at the International Academic Conference on Renewable Music to present on the topic Approaches to Renewable Music using Generative Pre-trained Transformer Networks. Today, I will walk you through the following points. Brief introduction of what transformer networks are and how they work. Different approaches to the use of generative media and integration into the creative process, and a case study along with other practical examples. To start, let me explain what I mean by renewable in the context of music. In my case, renewable means taking existing music and finding ways to renew and reuse it, giving it a new life. One powerful tool for this is machine learning, especially generative pre-trained transformers. But how do these tools work? In simple terms, To help me explain, let's think about how visual data is processed by a type of AI model called a diffusion model. Imagine starting with an image, which the model then turns into a noise. Through training, the model learns how to break down this noise and understand the basic building blocks of the image. It can then reverse this process, starting with noise and generating a new image, one that may resemble the original data it was trained on, or something completely new by mixing different elements and ideas together. In today's world, media takes on many forms. You can categorize it, for instance, into visuals, audio, text, 3D models, and other combined forms. Thanks to advancements in technology, we now have a wide range of GPTs that can create media in all these categories. For example, for text, we have ChatGPT, Claude, Gemini. For visuals, Midjourney, Stable Diffusion, Dolly. For video, Runway, Luma, Pika. For audio, Suno, Udio, Music Gen, Elven Labs, or Ava. This AI-generated content doesn't exist in isolation. It's often gathered and displayed on media platforms, media hubs. For example, the Midjourney Explore panel or the Udio Browse panel. What struck me in Udio was the striking similarity of it to Spotify, platform that provides content created by real artists. The Udio panel is almost identical to Spotify, with the exception of that on Udio you can only listen to generative creations. This kind of design choice can blur the lines between what's created by human and what's generated by algorithms. It can create an illusion, making it easy for people to assume they are engaging with content made by real artists when in fact they are not. So where does this leave space for the human, the artist? This is a question that has been explored by researchers at Oxford University. They looked into how artists are using machine learning and identified key ways it can be integrated into the creative process. These include technical research, understanding how the technology works and what can it do, choosing an algorithm, selecting the right type of AI model for the desired output, building a training data set, creating and gathering data that will be used to train the AI, training the algorithm, teaching the AI by feeding it the data so it can learn, and selecting from latent space, choosing from the AI output, which may involve exploring a wide range of generated possibilities. It's important to note that artists don't have to use these tools at every step. They can decide how and when they want to engage with AI. Some might use ready-made solutions, while others prefer to develop their own system. The flexibility allows artists to integrate AI in ways that suit their unique creative process. For example, as shown below in the graphic here, different artists approach these tools at various stages. One notable case is Alexandra Francis, who used AI-generated abstract graphics as a starting point. She took those designs as inspirations and developed her own illustrations, which ended up becoming the cover for the book AI and the Arts. Now, how can we apply similar strategies to the process of composing music using GPT technology? Music data, which acts as the foundation for creative exploration, can be represented in multiple formats, such as audio, the raw sound of the music itself, sheet music, traditional notation that musicians read, digital information that tells instruments how to play, descriptions or symbolic forms of music, and other, including various experimental formats. Beyond this, music can also be described and understood through other means. Semantic description, using words to capture the essence of mood of a piece. Visualization, graphical representation that convey musical elements. Physical representation, such as waveform or spectrogram, lyrics or codependent media, when music is tied to other contexts like films or theater play. We might choose to focus on specific elements of the musical work, such as melody, harmony, rhythm, dynamics, tempo, articulation, and timbre. So far, I've discussed different ways to extract material from an existing musical composition. Now I would like to introduce some potential methods for transforming this material, allowing us to create something new and fresh from the familiar. In my proposed AI arranger workflow, the music source is processed into a text representation, which is then converted into a text prompt for a large language model. This in turn is processed into a music component, which is further transformed into a part of the final music piece, as we create an artificial music component from the original music source. It's some kind, for me, it's similar to the recycling process, transforming initial material into something new. To illustrate this approach, I applied a similar process to the piece Nad wodą wielką I czystą, Above Water Vast and Pure, composed by Jan Ignacy Paderewski. This work, written for voice and piano, is a romantic setting of Adam Mickiewicz poem of the same name. Here is the original version. As an initial test, I fed only the audio of this piece into Meta's Music Gen transformer without providing any additional text prompt or context. This example shows just how crucial additional processing can be. While the main melodic gesture was preserved, the transformation felt quite generic. It seemed as though the model defaulted to the most common elements from its training data, resulting in instrumentation typical of a pop jazz band complete with drums. Clearly, this was not aligned with the original Romantic's essence. To address this, I decided to take a more refined approach. I used a large language model, specifically ChatGPT-4, to convert textual information about the piece into a semantic description. This allowed me to rearrange the instrumentation, aiming for a string ensemble that better captured the original atmosphere. Using this approach, I generated another version of the piece, which showcased a different, more nuanced transformation. In this version, the melodic gesture and basic harmonic structure of the original piece was somewhat preserved, but the generated material still lacked coherence and did not meet the desired quality. As a result, I decided to try a different approach using a more advanced model, Udio. This time, I included a text prompt along with the original lyrics to create an alternative version of this piece. As you can hear, this method allowed me to retain key elements such as the lyrical content, the overall mood, and a fitting instrumentation. However, the model was unable to accurately recreate the original melody and harmony. Additionally, while the result was more sophisticated, a trained ear could still detect a lack of naturalness in the recording. When I presented this version to the professors of sound engineering, they noted an uncanny feeling, suggesting that while the output was polished, it still felt artificial. Beyond reimaging music, generative models can also be used to create accompanying media that enhances the listener experience. For example, a piece can be represented visually to deepen audience connection to the music. In the example below, semantic descriptions of the piece Nad wodą wielką, czystą was processed by DALL-E 2 into an image depicting a vast, calm body of water with clouds above it. Generative visuals have also been employed in larger multimedia projects. A notable example is the recent Beksiński's live tour, where music was paired with iconic paintings by Zdzisław Beksiński. The artworks were generatively transformed into an interactive living pictures, creating a dynamic and immersive environment for the audience. This integration of music and visual art showcases how generative tools can bridge different creative mediums, offering new ways to engage and captivate viewers. Moreover, generating an abstract audio component can be also used for creating sound design effects and elements that can be layered into a musical composition. In a way, this approach involves hacking the structure of transformer models. It's not their intended use, but it allows for the generation of audio noise that can be more primal, with new distinct features that are yet to be explored. These sounds can provide new, unexplored characteristics that push the boundaries of traditional audio design. This method can also be applied to the generation of unique voice synthesis, offering new possibilities for creating vocal elements that don't simply mimic natural speech, but introduce new sonic qualities.
Co dzień eksperymenty, a im służą, rozwija umysł, otwiera drzwi sekrety. Hej Grzegorz, młody geniuszu, dźwięku magiku,
On broader scale, AI tools can also be utilized to deconstruct existing audio tracks, separating them into different stems, such as vocals, instruments, and percussion. These stems can then be rearranged and blended with newly generated elements to create a reimagined hybrid pieces. This opens up the possibility of breathing new life into familiar material, transforming it in innovative ways. Moreover, there is no need to limit the application of generative tools to just one form of media. A perfect example of this multidisciplinary approach is seen in the work of artist Mickiewicz. In his creative process, he aimed to integrate generative tools at as many stages as possible, starting with elements such as plot, script, dialogues, visuals, 3D models, sounds, music, to make an experimental generative animation.
Lady Gwendolen, clad in shining armor that reflected the scorching desert sun, trudged through the sand towards the crumbling castle. Her mission, to vanquish the mischievous gnomes once and for all. For years, these pint-sized pranksters had terrorized her village with their antics. Sand in the bread, cacti in the outhouses, and camels mysteriously painted purple.
All of the music and sounds were generated, as well as visuals. By incorporating generative tools across these various stages, Mickiewicz demonstrated how AI can act as a versatile collaborator capable of enhancing and expanding the creative process in numerous interconnected ways. This approach not only streamlines the workflow, but also opens up new creative possibilities that would be difficult to achieve through traditional methods alone. I have explored the use of musical composition in the context of reusability and renewability. In this framework, the potential of existing musical data on which new generative models are trained becomes evident. Transformers, in particular, present significant opportunities for finding new ways to reuse and reinterpret existing musical material. I would like to close with a thought-provoking question. Is it ecological? The topic can be viewed from several angles. Certainly, a shift toward data processing in the virtual domain could contribute to reducing the use of non-renewable resources. On the other hand, extensive training and usage of transformers may lead to increased consumption of energy resources. As a society, in the long term, we should prepare for this and focus on developing efficient and widely accessible use of renewable energy sources to ensure the continuity and security of progress so that we can not only live comfortably, but also continue to create art, music. With these thoughts, I conclude my presentation. I now present the additional informations and would like to invite you all to engage in an academic debate on these ideas. Thank you.
Thank you, Grzegorz. I listened to this with great interest. I have to say, this kind of science is so out of my sphere. I'm amazed what the technology can produce now and how far technology went in development. It's quite amazing. I used to be a performer and a pianist, and so this is totally out of my thinking. One question, if I can start with, which came to mind, is that we are applying a scientific discovery on a piece of art. So artificial intelligence is applied on a piece of art created by an individual. And I'm wondering what's the view on this, whether this can stay as a piece of art or it is becoming science and it's not art anymore.
I believe science was always used for creating new kinds of art. We have multimedia, video, pictures. When the society turns toward new milestones of technological development, we can attain new ways of expressing ourselves artistically. And for me, I think it's natural that we as people, society, think how to express our aesthetics, our need for creation, using tools we have around us. Because 2000 years ago, people lived in the society which didn't have that much technologies, and they used everything that they had for their times. So it's for me natural human behavior to seek for it, to use it, and it also can reinvent the methods. How do we use that new technologies, new tools, the AI? So the AI is somewhat changing how we perceive world and how we interact with the world and with art, but we also can manipulate the development of the AI tools by how we use them. And different research associations look into this, such as mentioned from earlier Oxford University.
Right, thank you. Any questions from anybody? I cannot see.
Agnieszka.
Yes,
Agnieszka.
I have one question. Thank you very much. It was really interesting. So it seems to me that artificial intelligence can actually take jobs from film composers, film music composers, or maybe help them in the creative process. Because if I understood correctly, one can use a video fragment, like a movie scene, as a prompt, and then ask AI to compose music to this scene. So do you actually know any composers who use generative tools in their work?
I know that some artists use the AI as designing the basic concepts. So they are using it in pre-production to know the general mood, feel, the general structure of the music they want to make, and to consult them on the basic concepts with the production team. So it's really making it easy to plan this music, to plan how the visual composition is going to look like. I know that also visual artists use some artificial help for okay. I know that some artists look as inspiration for their work, and they like to have some ideas, and it's the process that we observed earlier, because artists did some visual artists can make those tables with inspirational photos of the moods, and musical artists also can think about other pieces that may be similar to their ideas. So for me, it's making this work, this pre-production easier, and making it to another level.
Thank you. So it's more like a helping tool now than something replaced.
But you have some low quality adverts from the internet. You can see some visuals, some small video GIFs, or short films of low quality products, and the market uses it now for the creation of the content for advertisement. I don't think that it's so much creative, but we are now flooded with some more and more generative content. So I present some ways that we can make a workshop for ourselves and try to attain a new level of AI created content that has an artistic value.
Thank you.
Yes, Jagoda is
the next one,
yes.
and then Małgorzata. Thank you, Béla. Thank you for your presentation. It's although I am myself now at the very opposite of AI, I wanted to say that, of course, there's like one thing. AI is not just generative. It needs to be fed first with other artists. And this is the difference between AI and other generative tools like, I don't know, synthesizers, oscillators, or algorithms, computer music, which really generates something. And there are some calculations, but these calculations are not fed, and the outcome of it by other people actually works. And this is something that makes a difference, because let's say a picture or a music, there are some rights. This is like something different. And of course, I don't want to go now to market topic and economy of creating arts, music, and so on, but this is definitely somewhere there. And there is, of course, commercial and this artistic field, but people also have to live. But let's say, so that there is this one point, it's not just generative. First, it's someone's work to do something with it. And another thing, there are, of course, also art projects based on it in a creative way. One is, for example, at the MDV, which I, in a way, represent today a bit. And there is now a huge project on AI, and I think also it highlights also its ethics. So it's not just about aesthetics of AI, but also ethics of this. There is many artists involved. I know that the head of the project is Thomas Grill, and he's the writer of the Electronic Music Institute there. And there is many artists, and I think also philosophers, engineers, many people really involved. And there is also this ethics. And also, I think a colleague of mine, Genoel von Lilienstern, he also does something with AI. I think there is many artists, but let's say I do not use myself this tool, so I don't know why I cannot now drop many names, but there are definitely people who do it.
Yeah, it's very important that you mentioned that it's a gray area in the law, and we don't have any legislation that can cover this topic. But I also know that you can train those tools, algorithms by yourself and create maybe your own idiomatic machine learning algorithm that can generate media using the work you created, and some artists actually do that.
Yeah, but this should be really, I don't know, this what is commercial, what is not commercial, there are the rights, and I see there some ethical issue, and and of course a tool is just a tool, another tool one can also think, but so it's
sorry to interrupt, I think we are running out of time, and there is Małgorzata who is waiting, I think, with a question. Maybe we have time for one more question.
Thank you. My question is pretty much similar to the one of Jagoda, because my question is about how do you, taking into consideration everything that Jagoda said, it's how do you perceive the authorship of the piece that was created in that way? Because as Jagoda said, it's fed with data that comes from different sources, and basically when you create a piece using this AI, you feed them the description that you created, but the piece itself is created in kind of a black box way. So what would you say about the authorship of it?
When it comes to authorship, I would look at it as a process that I did. So I wouldn't necessarily say that the outcome is mine, but the creative process of how I did what I did and the research can be authorized.
So who will get the copyright, actually? Who will get the money from the...
For me, I do it as a research. So for me, it's really interesting. How does it work and what can we do with it? I am purposely not taking into consideration the legal part of this process, because in my opinion it's a subject for a whole conference.
So at current times, we do not have any legal framework for authorship. That's your point, isn't it? If I understand correctly.
Yeah, we are all waiting for the EU, for the international laws.
And for the time being, let's say the Paderewski song is played in the supermarket with your creative process, then from the authorities, the money goes to Paderewski, or the money goes to you, or doesn't go anywhere?
I wouldn't say anybody would use my Paderewski interpretation.
Right.
But I think you could use some fragments as a core for your music, such as maybe nowadays hip-hop artists use some looped fragments of different songs in their covers in their songs. So it's I would think about it in that way.
Right. Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
It was very thought-provoking, I think, and it's lots of questions which still have to be answered at a later stage, I think. Okay, let's move on to our second paper. And this is coming from Jagoda Szmytka, who is a historian and philosopher, studied these two subjects at the University of Wrocław, and also studied instrumental composition at the Music Academy, and took courses in electronic compositions as well. Later on, she moved to Germany and Austria, studied at the Hochschule in the university in Karlsruhe and Frankfurt and then Graz. And currently, she is at the University of Vienna, working on her thesis. Jagoda, the mic is yours now.
Thank you, Béla, for introducing me. Yes, I think it is, I must say, I was listening with a great attention of the conference, and actually I thought about my paper again, and actually that probably I would like to write 3 more papers that would link or respond to another papers in this conference. But as we all know, I have chosen a topic, sustainable scores. And about this, I will speak today. So I would like to maybe say hello again. And yes, I'm very grateful to may participate in the international conference on renewable music and contribute with the presentation entitled Sustainable Scores, Notes on the Potential for Fostering a More Versatile and Inclusive Compositional Practice through Renewal of Musical Notation. I, as a composer of instrumental and vocal instrumental music, I write musical scores. From 2007 until now, that is 2024, I have created a number of solo chamber and ensemble compositions. In my work on each of the pieces I created so far, I invested a great amount of attention and also effort into drafting the most appropriate notation for each individual piece. By which, especially in my early creative years, I meant modeling such a notation that would correspond in the most coherent way possible with the compositional concept and the musical material of the piece, which is confirmed, apart from the scores themselves, by text notes from the years 2009 and 11, in which one can read the following thoughts on notation. Notation is the expression of making a choice between this, what the creator wants to include in the composition, and that, what the creator does not want to include in it. The score appears and remains on the boundary between these two things, like the contour. It separates this, what has meaning, from that, what lacks meaning. I'm convinced that there is only one appropriate and irrepressible notation for one composition. If I had notated that one composition differently, it would already be a different piece. To this I will make later also some comments. When the question of the identity of music arises, it simultaneously inquires about the identity of the sound, the identity of the instrument, of the musicians, of the composer. This inquiry is always realized through the musical material and reflected in its notation. The notation reflects the way of thinking about music, about sound, about the reasons of the writing. One has to ask for the identity of sound before putting the first mark in the score, and so on and so on. And to other, of course, there is in between a lot of other texts. I just selected the small parts about writing music or really notation. In my opinion, the writing process and thus the consideration of all notational issues follows the pre-compositional processes, which include the attainment of a clear conception of the composition and direct access to the musical material through playing the instruments by oneself. By analyzing the categories of variability, ambiguity, and fragmentation, I sought to find my method of composing at each stage and level of the creative work, to mention just a few of its most significant steps. This would include working on an idea, collecting material, finding a raw form of notation, developing the material, fixing the notation, the birth of form, and the performance practice. So shortly, this all maybe in 2 sentences, because I know it was a lot of information. I wanted to say with this, quoting myself in a way that I always try to give a lot of really effort and attention to notation. And this can be seen because if one would really take a look on scores written in this, I don't know, like in range of these years, since 2006 or 7, there is really a lot of happening. Maybe this is also now from me. I really was having actually many composition teachers. And I think this multitude also of approaches is sort of, I don't know, my personal, like looking for the way, like how to approach this material, how to conceptualize music, because a part of conceptualization is also embodied in notation. I wanted to say that lectures of philosophical texts that were very inspiring for me were, for example, Imperium of Science by Roland Barthes, many texts, but like what is the Schrift? In Schrift, also like pieces by Wolfgang Riem. He was himself speaking a lot about writing, and one can see it even in the writing process. It's like in Schrift. Even in the titles of his music, one can see that writing itself was something very reflected by him. Writing. I would like to say now a few words, what was this multitude of scores. So I'm active as composer since 2006. In my works written between 2006 and 2018, I was applying tabulature notation, conventional notation, and hybrid notation. The term tablature I use in reference to the notation of an action, that is the way a sound is produced. Traditional notation or conventional notation is conceived as a notation of what sounds. That is a notation of sound phenomena. Hybrid notation combines elements of tablature and conventional notation and thus involves the use in notation of symbols referring to ways of producing sound as well as symbols assigned to specific sound phenomena. As an example of tablature notation can be found in the composition 1 or I. This is also a question how to read this title. Study of Who, Where, When from 2007 for acoustic keyboard instrument or instruments, metronome or metronomes, dictaphones, audio, video, and light projection. The instrumental layer of the piece consists of two parts, part A and B. Part A is constituted by only one musical gesture, a cluster. This is what we see here. This is actually entire part A, this 4 pages, which is repeated with variations 15 times. Whereas part B of the piece is constituted of figuration built from elementary musical gestures, such as tremolos, trills, scales, passages, and rhythmic ostinato, and the transitions between them. Yes, so this is now we see entire part B, like in total, without introductory part, the score has 10 pages. The notational, so now we see page 4, first system from part A. I want to show it because it's like enlarged and we can see the notational space and also the clusters precisely. The notational space in entire part A is defined by multiple thick and thin lines, where the thick lines represent chromatic keys in C and the fields between thin lines, diatonic keys in C. The number of lines and fields corresponds to full 5 octaves range of the harpsichord from F1 to F6. There are 25 thick lines for 25 chromatic keys in C, and 36 spaces between thin lines for 36 diatonic keys in C. The top line is for the highest F and the lowest line is for the lowest F, F1. In the score, as you can see, I applied the Polish scientific pitch notation. So the symbols look different as F1 and F6. There are no metric indications. The time is regulated through numbered vertical dashed lines, which designate 1 second units. The entire material of part A, which is written within above described notational space, is limited to clusters and arpeggio clusters. All clusters are represented by black and white signs of different sizes and shapes. The cluster shapes are notated in a proportional notation, which means that the vertical dimension of a sign designates an approximate range. Its length sets an approximate duration, and its localization on the grid defines the approximate position on the keyboard. When the cluster sign is black and white, it must be performed on diatonic and chromatic keys as in C. When the beginning of the cluster sign is black and then black and white, the attack must be performed on chromatic keys in C and then extended to diatonic keys in C. The quasi-oval contours of clusters designate increasing and diminishing the range. In other words, the shapes of the cluster sign depict the arpeggios and reverse arpeggios. So it is really like rising and moving down the hand in relation to the keyboard. However, additionally, they visually resemble fluid forms, which resonates with the idea of the dissolved attacks and releases. Thinking about notational space, I realized that no one reading the score while performing a piece would be able to calculate which field or line to perform a cluster on. The grid serves for orientation is intuitive because it resembles a keyboard proportionally. The intention behind the development of the notational solutions described and the craving out of the musical material was to build a correspondence between notation, material, and the theme of the composition, and inquire into the identity of the subject, space, and time, along with the assumption that in order to achieve clarity of ideas in the realization, the main function of the material should be highlighted by focusing exclusively on what is important and to detract from what has ornamental value on the conceptual level, also material. These considerations have led me to the point where the way to realize a compositional concept is to try to write down a musical gesture that is abstract on one hand, while simultaneously emphasizing organicity and ergonomy on the other. In other words, the aim was to write a gesture that is not a concrete gesture in a harmonic and rhythmic sense. The aim was to reduce harmony and rhythm while emphasizing individual materialization. Under the individual materialization, and understand this, that the performer, the interpreter who at harpsichord or by piano plays this piece leaves an unique and individual imprint of his or her own hand or their hand on the keyboard. And therefore, I really wanted that this idea is embodied in the notation. And also like visually. And this piece is also a lot about processes of blurring, of blur. So we do not have very clear attacks and very clear releases of clusters. This is like this, arpeggio clusters or reversed arpeggios when you release it. And I want to add that also the attacks and releases are blurred by amplification. And in some parts of that piece, there are sounds which only stimulate the mechanism of the instrument, like resonance, but do not pluck the string. So there are like tapping, there are gestures of tapping by hand on the keys, and through amplification, the very fragile mechanism of harpsichord is resonating, and yes, there is the same gesture, but with a very different outcome, and thus this where the sound begins and ends is questioned by this composition. And the main theme was really just pressing and depressing the keys. I wanted that this is one main gesture in this piece, or very simple ornaments. So like the most specific to the instrument gestures. I asked this question. I would like that we hear a short example. We heard a little fragment from part A in interpretation by Sonia Leipold and Tibe Maria Talent on harpsichord, Thomas Brill, who was doing realization of the sound. Now I would like to speak very briefly. I have to really hurry a bit. About part B, what we see now, it's a second section of the part B consisting of a small wrench figuration. The figuration is notated with the use of note heads in shape of dots without stems. The dots are slightly of a different size, what reflects the idea of the ergonomic aspect of the performance through depicting irregularity, organicity of the human hand. And this was one of the also biggest topics, and different approach to sound material, because normally one would think about the wrench or like how the clusters were born. Like I come back, and also how the figuration maybe was born. Like the clusters were born from actually a tonal system still. There were chords built up of seconds, what Henry Cowell at the beginning of 20th century said. And they were like increasing chords, which some composers said are of a amorphous identity, like Pierre Boulez, for example, said about this musical entity of a cluster. And I didn't want to approach it from within the harmonical system, but from the performative element, and highlight the individuality of the performance. Also bringing in a way to the discourse the body of the performer or individuality. It's like leaving a fingerprint or leaving an imprint in the keyboard of a human hand, which will be always different. So this was my biggest aim. This I tried also to do in a second part when we have different forms of figuration. The different size of of the passages that are in the different directions, up and down. They should depict a little bit the different energy of the pressure of the human hand. Like this is also like a little bit questioning. So this piece is a questioning construction in a way. It was questioning also here how we are trained to play a passage. All professional musicians from the beginning of the training has to equalize the fingers. So normally we like non-practice, like non-musicians or people who do not practice piano, for example, they would probably have different strengths in all the fingers, and one would be louder, one would be more silent. There's different energy, and it's related to ergonomy of hand and strength in finger, shape of finger, length, and so on. And what musicians do is training that each finger is very equalized. The clusters, for example, in Lutosławski, Jeu Venetian, the clusters are performed like large scale by even actually it's written in the score by like a wooden lista, not plate but list, a long object on the keyboard, so that all sounds are pressed very equally, and this is very important for the identity of the piece. In my case, it is a reverse of that process, because I really tried in notation to embody this organic shapes, this to have an abstract but also concrete, and in this concrete like a concrete realization that there are these different forms imprinted later of different hands. So I aimed at something very different. This was this, and maybe I would like that we hear, so in the passages, they are also in a way abstract, because here, as we can see, the notational space is very different. There is just a very small range. Sometimes it is redefined in the second part, so there are like small or wider ranges. Maybe I read, the figuration is notated with the use of note heads in shapes of dots without stems. The dots are, as I say, slightly of different size, what reflects the idea of the ergonomic aspect of the performance through depicting irregularity, organicity of a human hand. Each finger is either shorter or longer than other ones, so they should hit the key with different strengths and in irregular manner while performing figuration. The rhythm is notated in a proportional way, represented by the distance of the dots from one to another, and the tempo is notated according to counting units given in for the orientation. The figuration itself is derived from the preceding its small range cluster. So there is a static gesture, and then which constitutes the first section of part B, and is conceived as sculpturing in the reliefs inside of the cluster. So the wrist is static and only fingers start to move. In this sense, the movement of the wrist is replaced by the movement of the fingers in different order, what is organized as short passages in direction up and down, in mirror relation between hands, and in down direction for the right hand and up direction for the left hand, also in a synchronized mirror relation. So not only fingers move, but also like hands and so on. So it is important that this movement later is increased. This is important, why I say, because this piece has also a visual part where the gesture are displayed only, but not heard. So it's like another perspective on a music gesture. I would like that maybe we listen very short excerpt from this part. An example of hybrid notation would be the piece Electrified of Memories of Bloody Cherries, Extended Landschaft von Musik. Maybe very quickly about the problems, because actually these all pieces lead to the question why I wanted the renewal of a musical notation, because it's something further. But it can open maybe some questions. As we see here, so this is the example of the hybrid notation. For example, the notation of clarinet and percussion part is conventional, whereas parts of cello and double bass on these pages, 1 and 2, of the score without introduction are notated in a hybrid form. The left and right hands are notated separately, and also they are compositionally sometimes thought together and not. The upper stave is used to notate the right hand, the bowing, and the lower stave is used to notate the position of stopping the string with the left hand. In the piano part, on the lower stave, there are notated sounds produced on the keyboard by regular depressing the keys, whereas on the upper stave, there are marked positions of the fingers stopping the strings inside piano. The notation of this stance is proportional. The bottom line depicts the position close to hammers, the upper line depicts the furthest position. And here, of course, already there is some notational problem because the distance between hammers and the bridge will be different for different range. So here I have always the same distance, although the meaning of this is different for different range. And I see it as a sort of problem. So this is like the first problem, for example. Another one, problem in string instruments with the notation. When one wants to work with one movement or like one sound, because it's not just movement, let's say a glissando, that is like left hand makes the glissando from the lowest register to the highest, and then approaches the bridge. And then, for example, comes back and the right hand goes to tasto and then to the bridge and behind the bridge. And the left hand, when it's amplified, it also sounds, but the right hand moves really along the full length of the string from the lowest position to position even on the timepiece. And with many notations, this movement is not possible to notate as a one sound because the key must be changed. So it is not very easy. So the sound quality is very different. There is a question of a note head. There is a question, is possible really to notate it as a one tone? How to do a very quick change between different techniques, a conventional and extended, that would involve changing, for example, a key. It's like a Lachenmann methods also for notating this extended techniques, yeah?
Jagoda, I'm sorry to interrupt. We are running out of time, I'm afraid. If you could just in a couple of minutes round it up.
Okay, so maybe I jump to the question, and I'm always have, it's my problem because I speak too long, and before I make the why something is a problem, then it's already late. So there came really a research question: how to enable connections between materially diverse sound entities with regard to cases in which the connection is feasible in terms of performance, but not in terms of musical notation. And this is for composers really, I think, actual questions who really work with this plenitude and multitude of sounds that is both so-called conventional and so-called extended techniques. One can observe that people who tend to compose with extended techniques either use very different sorts of notation, as I gave some examples. This is sometimes related that really there were different compositional schools. There was then musicians who were collaborating with different composers, and then there were like different note heads for one type of sound, for flute, for the same type of sound. And for example, for a vocal sounds in instrumental music, there are different ways of notating it for vocalists. And when there is a vocal sound that is whispered for musicians, then it is notated in another thing. So there's a lot of lack of integrity in modern notation in the music beginning from the 20th century. And learning from that all heritage, of course, applying it, or filter it through some personal preferences or searches, I really thought that it is a time, especially like the context of undertaking this huge work that lasted really a few years, of rethinking and renewing musical notation, was to look at it in a critical terms, not only from composer's perspective, what I really showed at the beginning, like this was also my compositional lessons, maybe not Wolfgang Grimm, but other composers like Pierluigi Billone, Beat Führer, people who work with different colors, with different instrumental techniques. There is always these note heads. And of course, there is some philosophy in the notation inside. So there are these two things. Either this is just practical solutions that people applied, very many note heads or different keys because they learned it, and there are different standards. There are not one standards, not yet, for these things. Or simply people have a philosophy about musical notation, what was also my case, looking at it as a topic even, and then there are some unique, sometimes notational solutions. And we can think even about Aaron Cassidy today. He now does even colorful scores, and these are like tablature scores. But what is this musical notation from the musician's perspective, interpreters? And also from the publisher perspective. So I made this also on the occasion of my of beginning of my collaboration with the second music publisher. Before I was working with the Edition Juliane Klein in Berlin. And I started in 2021-22 a permanent collaboration with Polskie Wydawnictwo Muzyczne, PWM Edition in Krakow. And I could work, this was a huge privilege, and is a huge privilege to work really with the editors and have a dialogue with them. And as I also started my research project and doctoral studies in the field of extended composition, now I cannot go there, it's a huge topic, I don't want to mess it all up. But it appeared that really there are these publisher preferences, there are musicians who want to look at it practically. There are some reading habits of the scores. Do we read it vertically or like that or like that? So there are these reading habits that are culturally also anchored. And so in first year of the collaboration, because the program board of the PWM edition selected first 10 old compositions for publishing, and we started to dig in it all. And there were many problems. And of course, I started to study music literature and also literature of the subject, because somehow it merged. A part of my dissertational project or doctoral project was really devoted to a musical notation and its renewal, which I did according to 3 main guidelines. And even though I am just a composer, I really took into consideration, and I tried, and this is this inclusive, I hope, approach to think of musicians, of their time, respect to their time, respect to their preferences, and learn about it. Of course, I am experienced in my way. I had a privilege to collaborate with a number of great musicians. And even now, for the occasion of second edition of, for example, a duo piece for e-guitar and the cello, I had privilege again to meet the wonderful musicians to discuss again some notational preferences. So I speak really not revising pieces. And there are these 3 main guidelines for the revision.
Jagoda, I'm really sorry.
Yes.
We are absolutely running out of time. So
Yes.
if you could round it up in 1 minute, please, then we need to go on to the other paper.
I understand. So I think this notation maybe what is this? What is sustainability? What I thought, why this topic would be actual for this conference, where I see what does it mean a sustainable score for me? It is a score that is interpreters friendly, not only composers friendly, that we put our philosophy or music only from our perspective, but this is really going toward musicians and also toward music publisher, because there are also these traditions and we have to meet really in the middle. And people, as I observed, musicians, they enjoy way more music when the score is simply better approachable and respects their some notational traditions. So I maybe just show the result. It looks extremely traditional now, I would say. This piece was also notated partially for guitar, left hand separated with right hand, and there are these extended techniques or also conventional techniques. But now, instead of reading 10 pages with all explanations, when the nomenclature for the piece is based on the Italian tradition in a way, or respects whenever it is possible to use something that is obvious for everybody, one can really have just maybe 1 or 2 pages of introduction. And I don't speak of the cases when there is 1 or 2 pages of introduction and later nobody knows how to play it, because there's many scores of really great composers. I don't want to say, but of course we all study music, that there are scores that only people who worked with these composers then really know how to play it. By Nono, for example, like if there is not interviews or a tradition of performance with other, and this is related to this old techniques, development of instruments, it was one way, and then it was development of the techniques. So I see that there is this potential for sustainable scores when composers think from few more perspectives than just what is typically considered as compositional, that we really think of reducing this and simplifying. And thank you. I think I will stop here.
Thank you very much. I would have many questions, but I don't think we can now go on to questions because we are really late. And thank you so much for this interesting paper. Maybe we can carry on in writing, but I would now like to introduce Jakub Kopaniecki, who is going to present the third paper of today's session. He is an assistant professor at the Institute of Musicology at the Poznań University, and his main research is on popular music and especially the contemporary music scene in Wrocław. We all know that Wrocław is one of the most vibrant cultural cities in Poland, as far as I can see it, getting information from the internet and from the websites. And I'm very much looking forward to his presentation. Jakub.
Thank you very much for introducing me, and thank you for making me a part of this wonderful conference. Yes, it's absolutely true that Wrocław is one of the most vibrant, culturally vibrant cities of Poland. And I'm going to give you like a kind of a field report mixed with case study about the current state of local music scene in Wrocław. But for those of you who don't know much about Wrocław, here's the city located in the southwest of Poland, the third most populated city of the country, with the Odra River flowing exactly through the center, through the old town of Wrocław. And Wrocław is called the meeting place. This is the promotional slogan, because Wrocław is known for rapid development of local economy, technological and scientific sector, as well as the cultural sector. Wrocław is very well known for its multiculturalism, openness. It also stimulates the cultural tourism, but also migration of people from smaller towns to Wrocław to study and to work, and also is one of the leading academic center in Poland. That's where I got my degree. But the city's greatest asset is this well-separated, bustling center with the market square in the middle, and most of the activities, the cultural and social activity, social life is focused on the Old Town and Market Square. And Market Square is surrounded by water, by river, and the city mode, which also creates the very special atmosphere of this area of the city. And because Wrocław is known for its rapid development and a lot of new people moving here, the city should provide some leisure. And leisure can be divided into two kinds: casual leisure and serious leisure. And the serious kind of leisure requires some commitment, but provides lasting benefits, which is especially important for young people who move here to study or to work. Benefits such as validation, recognition, experience, and belonging to certain groups. And because music is considered one of the key elements of identity, which helps shape people's identity, especially when they are teenagers or young adults, the musical leisure is especially interesting topic to discover the city through. And one of the prime examples of musical leisure is the activity of local music scene. And what's interesting is that local music scenes are made of anchors such as gastronomic venues like pubs, bars, clubs, places where the main reason to go there is to eat, to drink, to socialize, to spend time with friends or alone. It depends. And that's where the local music scene works, performs, and the community is bounded by musical taste, sense of belonging. It is internally diverse, but it's still based on cooperation. The diversification means that the people share new thoughts, new ideas, how to improve the life of the scene, how to find new performers and new audiences, how to follow the trends, but also how to develop some new possibilities for the future. And the core of the music scene is liveness, the direct interaction, the multisensory experience of the whole performance, but the place, the place, not only the access, like the stage and audience access, but everything that happens in the given space where the performance take place. So the place, the locale where everything happens also plays a very important role. And live music provides a kind of feeling of intimacy, locality, which can make us think that it's also the source of some kind of authenticity of a place. Authenticity is a very difficult topic to define, so I'm not going to do it right now. But the authenticity can be like produced by the activities of the local music scene. And because places are the main components of cultural public spaces, also the pubs, bars, and clubs, which are the focal points of the music communities, they also are the main components of the Old Town. And because Old Town is the city center, which is considered the most important space, the framework of social life, that's why we can say that the local music scene, the places which create the local music scene, play a very important role in creating the identity of the city. The way we perceive the city is also based on the activity of the local music scene. And I have a pleasure and privilege to conduct my research in the years 2019, 2021. I conducted a research on the Old Town music scene in Wrocław, actually on two local music scenes, the rock and the jazz music scene. Of course, jazz and rock I treat as kind of umbrella terms. Under the term, there are a lot of genres, but rock and jazz are like the main anchors of the musicians' activities. But today I will focus on the jazz music scene because the main topic of my presentation, the beach bars, are connected especially with the jazz scene. And the healthy music scene which can survive, which can sustain, is the music scene which is a kind of ecosystem where performers not only perform in places but also spend their free time, where different places give different possibilities because every musician, everyone who is a part of music scene, performer or listener, have different interests, like different genres of music, like to perform in a different way. So music scene should provide such places to explore different sides of one's identity. Also, there's a kind of exchange of performers, like one instrumentalist can perform with many different vocalists, for example, because each vocalist have different interests. So each of one of them can do something else, explore different sides of their musical interests, and of course support friendships. As I mentioned, there is diversification, but it shouldn't be a conflict between the members of the musical community, such as the local music scene. But the ecosystem worked pretty well for years. But unfortunately, as we all remember, in the spring of 2020, the COVID-19 pandemic happened, which stopped the working of gastronomic venues and cultural institutions. So each place where local musicians could work stopped working, stopped functioning, and it caused big problems, of course, for the economic side of the city, also for the identity of the city, because the soundscape of the city changed dramatically. The city was empty, was quiet, which is not normal for a bustling metropolis. But also for the citizens, their lifestyle couldn't be realized. Musicians and listeners, they weren't able to do what they want to do, to listen or to perform music. So there was also a problem for people who moved to Wrocław, tempted by the possibilities given by the city. And no venues meant no concerts meant no guests, and no guests meant no income for both owners of the venues, but also for musicians, because most of the local musicians are freelancers. They have no contracts. They have usually no stable source of income. So when they are not booked, they have no money. And it was huge problem for both artists and audiences. And there were some ideas how to survive during this period of time, mostly by streaming musical performances, but most of such concerts were not paid. So there was free concerts, just to remind people that we exist, we are still here, we are waiting to perform for you live on site. But unfortunately, a lot of musicians had to change their profession, quit music just to survive, just to have money, a source of income, to pay for rent, to have food. And for many musicians, some of them I spoke with, I made an interview with, some of them had really serious mental problems, such as depression, because of sudden loss of work. And suddenly, or maybe not suddenly, but somehow the beach bars help save the music scene and help them survive. The beach bars were back then in 2020 still quite a new phenomenon in Wrocław and also in cities in Poland. Beach bars usually located on the riverside, very far from the active and sonically varied city center. And they were less affected by the COVID-19 pandemic because during summer, when beach bars operate, the restrictions were loosened. The indoor venues still had to follow rules such as the amount of people or social distancing. But in beach bars, the rules were actually non-existent. That's why the beach bars worked as usual, as before the pandemic. Also, this is one of the favorite forms of leisure for people in Wrocław, because this is summer, the weather is nice, it's warm, the days are long. So why spend time inside where you can enjoy the sun, the summer, outside on the riverbank, on the artificial sandy beaches? And also, there are no dress codes. You can dress lightly, casually, and you can lean comfortably on deck chairs nature, so the whole atmosphere is very holiday-like. And in case of Wrocław, the first beach bar opened in 2016. When I conducted my research, there was around 15 beach bars, but in 2022 season, so right after the COVID, there was already 21. Right now, there is about 30 beach bars in Wrocław, and they are in a way a part of the Wrocław Old Town jazz scene because most of the musicians performing on the stages in the beach bars are connected with the venues in the old town. Usually beach bars have a kind of a stage, smaller or bigger, more professional or less, but almost every beach bar allows to some kind of music performance. And just like I mentioned about the indoor venues, also different beach bars give different opportunities for both experienced and beginner artists. And I have two examples for you. One of them is aforementioned Zazu, opened in 2016. Zazu, Za, behind, Zoo, Zoo. So the name of the beach bar is behind the zoo because this is located exactly behind the zoological garden in Wrocław. On the west and south, there's river with visible water sluice, but here the green, the trees are the trees in the zoological garden, which creates the very specific soundscape full of sounds of water, sounds of nature, especially sounds of exotic birds. But audible especially during quiet concerts or when there are no music. Also, the beach bar has a very characteristic structure. On the west, here's a stage and the area for listening to music. The deck chairs are usually situated to the side of the stage, like a front of the deck chairs to the stage to allow a good perception of music. In the middle, there's the entrance and the bar. And on the east side, there's the biggest part with sandy beach, but there's no music. This is the place for people who only want to spend time, drink, eat, and talk with friends. So this separation of the concert from the leisure, from the recreational area, allows for more involvement into concert, for better interaction between musicians and the audience. And the listeners are more active, more devoted. You can focus more on the performance because the stage is pretty huge, like for a beach bar. In the Zazu, you can hear mostly to professional local musicians who perform original repertoire rather than covers. Covers are very important, especially for beginning musicians, because in the case of Old Town music scene in Wrocław, most of the musicians began with singing covers of popular hit songs, and only after gaining some experience, some recognition, they start performing their original repertoire. But the covers sell well, and also covers are a mean of polishing their craft. So Zazu provides like great musical experience. This is designed from the bottom, from the ground up, for people both who want to listen to music and people who would like to spend time not listening to music, thanks to the separation of the area. And the second example is also one of the oldest beach bars. It's called Stara Odra, opened in 2017, which hosted 42 concerts. And this is pretty much because the amount of concerts in beach bar is pretty smaller compared to indoor venues. So 42 concerts in 3 years is a lot. And half of the concerts occurred during the first summer of pandemic. So the owners of the beach bar realized that there's a huge potential in allowing people to perform during the lockdown time. But the structure of the beach bar is quite different because there is a small stage in the middle and the sandy beach. So there's no separation of the concert and like recreational area. Also, there's on the east there are volleyball fields, but the stage is located right opposite the entrance and the bar. So the music instantly attracts attention. So when you enter enter the bar, the first thing you see and hear is the music. When you go to order some drink or food from the bar, also you are very, very close to music. The location of beach bar is good because it's located right below the flood wall, so it's separated from the communication sounds. So you can mostly hear only the sounds of the river. But the deck chairs are not arranged to form an auditorium, so you can listen to music if you want to, but the music mostly is a kind of a background for spending time with your friends, colleagues, etc. The stage is small, so you can usually hear solo or duo concerts, but the performances are by both amateurs and experienced artists, and they perform mostly covers of the popular music hits because the music is background for other activities. The covers are considered the best way to make the people enjoy their time spent in the beach bar. And because the music is the not mean of promoting the beach bar, concert like are additional to the life of the beach bar. The audience is filled gradually. People talk, people chat, people have fun. So sometimes they tend to maybe distract from the concert, but this is how the beach bar sounds and looks. But this is the beach bar which were highly popular among the amateur musicians who had a chance to begin their musical career during this difficult period of time. I believe I allowed you to hear the sound of my computer. So I have two short examples of concert in both Zazu and Stara Odra. Zazu, as I mentioned, professional musician, devoted audience. Stara Odra, music as a background. I'll play the example. Please tell me if you can hear the music. Hmm? Not yet. And the second example, Stara Odra, the smaller beach bar. As you can see, the difference is quite striking, but Wojtek Kiełbasa is one of the most popular singers in Wrocław. He sings on the streets, he sings in clubs, but he's among the top performers in the city. Still, he performed Ed Sheeran covers in Stara Odra because he told me that he just enjoys it. He enjoys his own material, but sometimes he just likes to sing covers of songs which give him pleasure, and he likes to share it with people, and he doesn't mind that some of them just don't care about his performance. But in the Zazu Cuban Latin Jazz, also Wrocław-based band, had a huge auditorium. Everyone was directed towards the stage, and also there was a whole band, great sounds, great speakers, great preparation for such a concert. Both professional performers in totally different place, in totally different kind of concerts and in different atmospheres. So to slowly go to conclusions, what opportunities for the existence and development of local music scene do the beach bar give? For example, in recent years, owners of the old town venues started to open their own beach bars because they see how popular that they are, that they allow them to earn more money, and they are like safe. They can save them during, for example, some problems with performing in the indoor venues. So there are a lot of beach bars right now. Smaller stages are better available for local musicians because before beach bars, there were mostly the indoor venues and only big outdoor scenes, which were available only for the most popular, the biggest local stars. They were not available for amateurs. Right now, almost everyone, beginner and professional, can find a beach bar where they can perform during the summer season. Of course, there's other result that the outdoor stage right now are almost non-existent in the city for many reasons, but they are too big for local musicians, and the beach bars like took the role of the former outdoor stage, most of the outdoor stage in Wrocław. And some disadvantage, usually the audience in beach bars are less devoted, but it depends on the beach bar where you perform. But for the city gets new cultural spaces which further enhance city's artistic identity and its creative potential. And among the local musicians, it's considered it's considered a very good direction to give more opportunities, to give more stages for local musicians. And the last word from me is that beach bars also can suffer from their very attractive location. Well, Wrocław is defined by water. Wrocław is defined by a river which flows through and around the city. That's why beach bars are located on the riverbanks. But during last month, there were severe floods in southwestern Poland, and the beach bars, almost every beach bar in Wrocław, were flooded. The good side is that it happened at the end of the season, so they didn't lose much money because they closed shortly before the usual time of closing. But unfortunately, a lot of infrastructure was damaged during this time. On the right, you see the biggest beach bar in Wrocław, Hotspot. So during the flood, like 2 weeks later, you have 7th of September. 2 weeks later, it was like totally covered by water. Zazu survived because Zazu is located by the zoological garden. So protecting Zazu meant protecting the zoological garden. So it's one of the few beach bars which survived the flood. But it shows that because of the climate change and the more extreme weather conditions, beach bars, which a lot of people invest in right now, may also be prone to some natural disaster problems in the not so far away future. And thank you very much for your attention, and I kindly invite you to visit Wrocław.
Thank you, Jakub. I really appreciated your overview on this very exciting city. I think we could go into questions straight away and ask the audience if there is any question.
If there is no question, you can always write an email to me.
If there is no question,
that's fine.
I have several ones, so I could perhaps ask. We were talking about a specific scene here, and my first question would be that when you mentioned the biggest stars at beach bars, what is the number of people attending, let's say, a Saturday night or Friday night event? So what is the attendance figure?
For example, in Zazu, it may be up to like 100 people or even a bit more, which compared to like indoor club, even the most popular professional ones, sometimes is twice as much people in the beach bar compared to the indoor venue in the old town.
Okay. And if we are looking at the financial background of these ventures, do they finance themselves? So the artists will get the fee of the income of 100 people paying for the tickets, or the venues or the owner of the bar actually is willing to give some towards these ventures from his profit, what he's making in the bar anyway. So how does it work financially? Is there any public support, public money towards these bars? Because the next question would be that whether this is some kind of organic development of the city, or there is an encouragement from the local authorities that this scene is becoming the kind of flagship of the city. It attracts lots of visitors, I guess, in the summer.
This is almost completely organic development of such spaces, because the local music scene is like deeply connected with the economy of the city, but with private investments. So almost every bar, I did my research in Beach Bar, and also the bar in Old Town is like a private property. So this is their source of income, to have a lot of people attending concerts, because when people go to a concert, they buy food and they buy drinks, and this is how they earn money. And about the tickets in the indoor venues, when I conducted my research, there were a lot of concerts for free, especially the concerts by the beginners, the people who start their career. The concerts were free, and they also earned like a small salary just to cover like tickets or taxi, etc. For the more recognized musicians, the concerts are usually ticketed, but for the most cases, the musicians get some amount of money, but it's not based on the number of tickets sold. So the more tickets sold, the bigger income of the venue. Sometimes, like very rarely, in case there were just like few cases I was told about, when the musicians got like some kind of percentage of the money earned on the tickets. But this is mostly about the indoor venues, because concerts and beach bars are usually free. Even the biggest ones, like I showed you on the example of the Cuban Latin jazz, they are usually free, but the money is earned mostly on the food and drink, because beach bars are not cheap. The food and drinks cost sometimes a lot, especially in the biggest ones. So also the concerts of a big local star usually results in a lot of money earned by the beach bar.
Okay. In general, is there any public money in Poland towards popular music?
Towards popular.
Yes, is the government spending money? In Hungary, it's quite a big debate right now. Is that not just the concert venue, the Forum Musiki? So it's financed by the city of Wrocław or the Ministry of Culture in Poland. But popular music as such, do they have any kind of public money, or public money spent exclusively on classical music?
There is money spent on popular music, but more like for venues which host concerts with popular music. And it was especially seen during the COVID pandemic, because there was like a grant to help some venues. You could apply for a grant, and some of the clubs and bars got such grants, which helped them, for example, host online concerts and pay the musicians who performed. So yes, there are such situations where government supports popular music, but usually it's not like a direct support, like maybe in case of art music.
Okay.
Okay. May I ask a question?
Yes.
Hello.
Hello.
Do you think this beach bar and outdoor music in general will be more popular than official music culture in Philharmonic music culture in the future? Or is it the future beach bar or such kind of outdoor music in general will be the future of music live?
I think that's no, it won't be like I think it won't be the main way of experiencing music, live music in the future. Well, first of all, because it works only seasonal, so you still have a huge part of the year where the beach bars are closed because the weather conditions are just not correct. But also the whole topic of the soundscape, the acoustic properties of the space. Of course, beach bars are by the river. There are whirr of boats, nature sound. So the conditions are not perfect. So the music halls, such as National Forum of Music, or even smaller bars like there's Vertigo Jazz Club and Restaurant, which is like a very prestigious music club, which is designed from the ground up to give you the best experience of music. So there are many reasons why the indoor venues may provide better overall experience. This is also the whole topic of aura. I didn't have a chance to describe more broadly, but also the place where you listen to music. This is not only the performer audience access. This is the interior, the smell of the place, the quality of the service.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of reasons why beach bars will be more and more popular, but won't take the traditional way of experiencing music.
Okay, thank you very much. But maybe we don't need very complicated music in the very big, concert halls anymore, as Professor Solomos explained. Perhaps this is now it's going on the period and era of simplification and
yes.
Who knows? Anyway, thank you very much for your extremely interesting paper. Thank you.
I think I suggest there's one more question, or no, it's actually no. I think
yes, it is.
No, there is one. Yes, go ahead.
May I?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Béla, you asked about financial support to light music. It's very very. I cannot turn on video because it was stopped by Marcin Strzelecki, I think. Doesn't matter.
Okay.
You ask about financial support to light music.
Yeah, towards popular music, actually.
Yeah.
What I wanted to know, because
it's now it is a big affair with Madonna. Madonna, who had a concert in Poland, in Warsaw, and state finance all costs of this concert,
right.
which was huge, of course,
right?
As you can know. So, please.
If I may add, because actually I'm a huge fan of Madonna, and I remember because it was in 2012, and it was the first major concert on the National Stadium in Warsaw. And actually, they didn't know yet how to organize such a few concerts. So eventually, the cost of the concert was so huge that the government had to cover like few millions of zlotys. I don't remember, but it wasn't the fault of Madonna herself, but the whole or the lack of experience, maybe. And it was like a huge scandal that Polish government financed the concert of Madonna. It was actually the last concert of Madonna in Poland, unfortunately.
Yeah. Yeah. Anyway, I think we need to stop now because we have just 5 minutes before the next session starts. I think I give back the microphone to Agnieszka and she will instruct us. Thank you very much, Jakub, and for
Thank
all
you.
participants of the 7th session. And the mic is now with Agnieszka.
Thank you very much, Béla, and thank you for chairing this session. Many thanks to all the participants, to all the speakers. So I think that we can have a 5-minute break until we start the next session. Maybe there are some other people who will join us at 4. And for all those interested in artificial intelligence, we actually have a small change in the program because one person canceled last minute. So our last speech will be delivered by Dr. Marcin Strzelecki, and it will be about music, AI, and energy. So stay with us until the very end if you are interested to hear more about this. So thank you, and we'll start in 5 minutes, if it's okay.